Hey, we'd like to welcome everybody to our first performance school of the 2022 spring semester. This is our fourth semester using performance school as a tool to continue to get better as staff, as members of the performance community here at Penn State University in the Penn State system. This is actually going to be our very first performance school in person. So we're really excited about that. And because of it being in person, what we wanted to do was to also video this ahead of time, so we could have it for records, to be able to share it, be a little bit cleaner. So certainly welcome everybody. Really appreciate the time spent in this, and those that took the time out of your schedule to attend and fellowship with us in learning. Thank you so much as well. So today, just a couple objectives. We're going to look at some of the high performance infrastructure that we've spoke about in the past and how to infuse high performance practices in what we do on a day-to-day basis. We're going to talk about the institute model and how it can potentially be a solution for complex systems. We see that in universities. We're going to explore at a very, very surface level the Microsoft Teams package as it pertains to being a solution for some of the things that we encounter within complex systems. And then we're going to have an open forum to talk. Once we get there, we're also going to have this film just for teaching purposes as well. So we're going to remind all the guests, just, comments are welcome, conversation is welcome, but we just want to be cognizant of it being recorded and be professional at all times. Okay. So I had mentioned that performance school is something that we've done almost for 2 years now, and it started off to bring people together. We have such a diverse set of professionals here from different backgrounds, different interests, different levels of expertise levels. So we want to bring that together and grow. If you look at some of the research as it pertains to professional learning, you can dig into some of the things about situated learning and communities of practice. And essentially some key takeaways there is that powerful opportunities for professional growth are oftentimes opt-in. I have to choose to get better. I can't just have it oppressed upon me. I can't have somebody beat it into my head. I have to opt in and choose to be a part of that. And sometimes people don't opt into certain types of, or forms of professional learning, and that's fine. Everybody learns different. The key is we have to continue to get better over time. It needs to be intentional. That kind of goes along with opt-in. Stranded means it needs to be career long. It's sometimes not super effective to just have small doses of education. I need to be intentional throughout my career, and learning new concepts can be more powerful when it's done over time. Okay. And then obviously, when we build community and fellowship with one another, we're going to all grow together, especially if we're a part of the same organization, same institution, department. We're going to rise the department. Okay. So when we think about high performance, we have traditionally talked about there being 4 elements that we can use and to keep in mind when we're moving forward this idea of a sports performance team, a high performance unit. We'll call this the infrastructure. The first, going through this quickly, is we're keeping the athlete at the center of all that we do. It doesn't matter if it's decision making, if it's planning, if it's bringing on a new system or technology or a new staff member. We need to be thinking about how that influences the athlete. And we need to make communication a priority. That's talking or giving a message, and that's also listening and receiving the message. It's also about being progressive and ahead of what it is. So I need to emphasize being proactive in communicating, so as opposed to reactive. Okay, planning and evaluation is everything. That's including everyone within the performance team. That is including people that could be higher on the hierarchy of an organization all the way down to the bottom. It doesn't mean that everybody has the same say, but everybody needs to be a part of that process, because we are very diverse and we all come from a little bit different backgrounds, and we can all contribute. Part of the planning process is also an evaluation process. We need to be thinking about how we can improve our plans, the long-term and short-term plans. Just like planning, evaluation can be long and short-term. It can be an after-action review following a practice where we get around the film table and just start looking at practice and ID what went well, what went poorly. or it could be a formal block evaluation following a season or following an athlete's career, really. Okay, and then the fourth point, it really speaks to what we're trying to do here within Performance School is we want to establish a learning organization. Groups and organizations that learn together and work to get better together are really good. And if you think about all the things that could be marked as a competitive advantage, we can buy new things, we can build new things, but people are going to catch up. People are going to do the same thing. They're going to copy. If we always learn, that is something that nobody's going to be able to mimic or to get us. So learning as an organization is a massive competitive advantage for us. Okay, when we're thinking about performance, especially within a collegiate or high performance setting, an elite sports setting, we need to guard against reductionism. Okay, so a reductionist mindset is essentially where we're going to break the athlete into the component parts. If you look at the history of sports performance and where we are and where we've been, we have been fortunate to develop subdisciplinary groups. Okay, so you have obviously strength conditioning, performance psychology, sports science, the medical side. We have all these different units, and we're very good at getting really at gaining expertise of what we're doing. It's nobody's fault. That's what we're tasked with doing. But if we're not careful, we can actually start to pull the athlete apart. Whoever's at the center, we can pull it apart. This is a classical work here where we look at a mechanical duck. It displays the idea of reductionism. I can take this duck apart, reassemble it, and most likely I can get it to work again. When that becomes a biological organism, an organic organism, you can't really do that. You may be able to break it down into the component parts, but if you do get it back together with, again, it may not work the same. So we need to be thinking not of our athletes and the overall structure as something that's just pieces. We need to think about it more of it as an ecosystem. In the lit, it talks about it as being a complex biological system. We need to understand that everything impacts everything. So when the sunlight comes out, the grass grows. There's food for omnivores to eat. There's food for herbivores to eat. Then for the carnivores like to eat the other animals, they have food. If the sun doesn't go down, plants don't grow. Everything matters. Everything ties together. And that is college athletics. That is elite sport. We just always need to keep this in mind. Okay, so as an example, some of the research that we have within those complex biological systems, you have different components that live with one another. Then they start to interact with one another. And then over time, that entire system begins to thrive. The key thing here is 1 + 1 sometimes doesn't equal 2. Sometimes it actually may equal something bigger or smaller. We just need to keep these in mind as we go along. Okay, so this idea of complex systems, it's something that exists in sport 100%. It exists in nature. It exists in all walks of life. It also exists in the university setting. Okay, so you think about a massive university setting like Penn State. We have University Park campus. We have many other satellite campuses across the Commonwealth. We have complex systems. We have different groups with different interests, different skill sets, doing different things. It is vast. But what we can look to is what we call the institute model. When we think about an institute model, it's essentially getting a bunch of different people together and putting them on a mission and letting them get really good at what they're doing, and then coming back together to contribute to the whole. Okay, so essentially what we're going to try to do is to bring diverse groups of people together. It could be, let's go back to the university model. It could be individuals from the biology department, from the physical education department, from chemistry, from astronomy. It could be coming from the business school. We have diverse people in a university, and that is the strength of an institute. Okay, the next thing is what we want to do is we want to charge learning, development, and what we want to try to do is essentially to create knowledge. When we create knowledge, that's our ammunition. The next thing we want to do is to cultivate some sort of innovation. So from the knowledge, how can we make things better? And then finally, the most important thing is we want to share that. So for us, what we ended up doing is thinking about us in performance as an institute model. We call it the Performance Institute here at Penn State. And much like I stated at the beginning, we started with Performance School. That is this group right here. That is a group of learners. That is a group of people in our organization that come together for a common good. We've mentioned that this is almost 2 years in the running, and it's targeted toward developing staff, developing coaches, developing support staff, developing academics that come across campus to join us, developing people that join us from the branch campuses across the Commonwealth. Performance School is for our coaches and staff to learn. Last fall, we started our Performance Academy as kind of like a beta testing version where we are working toward educating our student athletes. All of our different groups do this, but when we think about putting it into an academy model where there's a stepwise progression over time, that's allowing us to build on one another. Different departments can build on one another, and we can grow over time. Then when we take this academy model, our student athletes have ammunition to be able to make positive decisions that can impact their health, their wellness, and their performance over time. So for us in this model, what we've tried to do is to create subunits or lessons and then disseminate it out to the different support staff. We're going to talk about how we can do this even more with Microsoft Teams in a second, but Performance Academy is for our student athletes. Our Performance School is for our coaches. The last branch that we're going to bring on is what we're going to talk about extensively today, and it's our Performance Hub. Okay, we use the example of the Keystone. The logo here, Pennsylvania, is called the Keystone State. And if you look at the top part of an archway, okay, there is a keystone. The keystone is the supporting structure that bears all the weight that keeps the archway from collapsing. It is almost the central point, the hub, if you will, of the archway. So for us, our hub is going to be the central point where we can all be a part of to exchange ideas, to share content, and to bridge the gap that may exist from sport to sport or from department to department. Okay. Our Performance Hub, if you will, think about it like this. Anybody, and it's going to be opt-in, you have to choose to want to do this. We're not going to oppress it upon anybody. If you are interested in being a part of the Performance Hub, you're part of the community, and it could basically be from any sport. Okay, so now the power of this is if we have professionals from a bunch of different sports as a part of our hub, we can then share information. So if something really cool is happening within the soccer program or men's and women's soccer, we can quickly get it to the hub. And then maybe someone from basketball or from hockey sees that information and they can use it within their program. Now, we're not looking for proprietary information. We're not looking for secrets or tactics that could give somebody a competitive advantage or lose that competitive advantage. All we're trying to do is share content here. Okay. Now, the hub is the powerful piece of this. We want to get things to the hub. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a picture of a venue. It could be a data point, a research article, anything. The more information we can get coming through the hub and disseminate it out, the better. Now, here's the neat thing too, is if you study some of the work that came out of General Stanley McChrystal in the War on Terror, the powerful thing that they did was starting to break down the lines of communication. So instead of just being a hierarchy where the information has to go up and down the chain, when you create a web type networking exchange, if I put something into the hub, everybody can see it. Hey guys, here's a really neat picture of Ohio Stadium. You need to watch out for there's maybe a hazard walking into the field level onto the turf. Be careful. Send. Now everybody sees that. Well, in Ohio Stadium, they play football, they play men's and women's lacrosse in that venue. So now our lacrosse people knows that there's a hazard and they need to be careful there. It could be travel. It could be information that we're gathering from the research or meetings we've had within our crew. It doesn't matter what it is. What we want to do is to get that active, and we can share information across teams, even if the conversations don't occur organically. Okay. The cool thing about Penn State, and I've already mentioned this, we have other affiliates as well. We have the Greater University, we have Penn State Health, and we have multiple other universities and colleges across our state that can potentially contribute to this over time. Now, how do we do this? How do we build this Microsoft hub? Okay. So what we're going to do is explore Microsoft Teams. And I'll be the first one to say that I probably did not give Microsoft Teams a chance early on during COVID. We were using Zoom so much. I only thought Microsoft Teams was a Zoom-like platform. Okay, Microsoft Teams is much, much more. In this video, we're going to explore 3 different things that we can use with Microsoft Teams. We're going to look at the actual application of Microsoft Teams. We're going to look at SharePoint, which is a file storage system that's set up in the background of Microsoft Teams. And then we're going to look at Power BI, which is a tool that we use for some of our data across our technology systems that we can actually infuse into Microsoft Teams. Okay, so just really quickly looking at Microsoft Teams, all you had to do is install it. It's going to look just like this. Click on it just like any app, and then you're going to come to a home screen. You could potentially be a part of many teams. This is an example of my screen where we're working on building out individual teams, team units for different sports here at Penn State. And for example, here's the Penn State Performance Hub that I was mentioning. That's where we're going to try to get members of every single one of our teams involved in. Then we can take the information from the hub and use it and apply it to our different teams that we have going on. But for the sake of this training, let's just quickly look at one team. We've created a fictitious off-piste ski performance team. And what this is at the team level is we can dig into this and you can see the team unit that is Microsoft Teams, and then the storage system that we call SharePoint. And you really don't need to use SharePoint. I just wanted to bring it up because it is operating in the background. Also, we can infuse, as I mentioned, Power BI into this as well. Okay, let's look at the team unit. Now, once you click on to your team, let's say you clicked onto this individual cell, okay, you'll notice here that it is showing up on the little icon. You can put the icon whatever you want. You can individualize it. You can change the name, whatever it is, but that'll identify what team you're on, especially if you're involved in a lot of different teams. Just a quick rundown. Here's a lot of the communication area that you can type. It is historical. So over time, as you add people, subtract people, you can keep a record of all the things that you're saying. Right down here are your channels, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, for me, I have historically been most versed in Microsoft Teams because it started off when we were in COVID and everybody was making the choice between Zoom or Microsoft Teams. I probably just didn't give it enough of an opportunity. But it has a function, obviously, like Zoom, but that is not the only thing that it can do. Okay, let's look over here on the left. You can see that you have an activity bar. If you click on the activity bar, basically that is every single thing that you do. It'll come up. If you're involved in a bunch of different teams like myself, all the information that's coming in is on there. And it's just kind of like a running total. And that's really neat for me because on my phone, I have the ability to go down through and I can see what everybody's doing when they're contributing. The next little area is like a chat. For some of the older people in here, if you remember like AOL Instant Messenger, that's essentially like a chat. But for everybody, it's almost like a DM on Twitter or Instagram. It's just like a chat function. And anybody in the Penn State system, you can chat with here. Here's goes back to your tile window that has all the Microsoft Teams. If you set your team up like a class or a classroom, let's say you're working with your individual position groups. Let's say I coach infielders or I coach corners or wide receivers, or I can break it on the offense or defense or whatever it is within your unit. You can actually build out assignments and check and look for different things there. The calendar within Microsoft Teams is actually tied to your Outlook, your Microsoft Outlook. So when things come into Microsoft Outlook, it actually shows right up there. So you don't have to switch back and forth between applications. Okay. You can have calls with this platform too. So when, I had mentioned the Zoom like feature, this is where that can happen. And it'll keep records of all of that. And then the last little tab here is like just almost like the top where it says activity. Any files that are shared with you show up right there. Okay. In your individual team, we can actually create channels. Okay, so within these channels, for example, let's say we have our performance hub. We've created channels for every single subdisciplinary group that is in sports performance. So performance science, CAPS, equipment, performance enhancement, and you can individualize this. So if it was with your team, you could individualize it by position or sports performance group by coach, whatever it is. You can create channels here within this. And what these basically are areas that you can click on for focused conversation. So in the top tab here, where you click on the general tab, everyone in the entire team would be alerted by those conversations. But if you set your channels up for position groups or groups, subunits that you decide, and you communicate there, it'll only show up and gain access for those people that are in that group. So very flexible. You can also lock these channels as well. So if you wanted to put some things that you didn't want anybody to see, you could put that in there as well. I had mentioned a second ago, it's communication. This is kind of where it is. Think about this as a canvas. So here, as chats come up, this is where it'll show. And each one of these units, each one of these channels will have a posts button. So if you only want to chat with sports science and you click sports science and hit post, it'll only alert those that are in this folder or this channel about the post that you made. But if you put it on the general, everybody sees it. Okay, I had already mentioned over here about the meeting area, but these three dots on this screen is where you can change different things with your settings, with your alerts that you may get within your individual teams. Power BI is a fantastic tool that we've brought online here in the performance group. And basically what it does is it allows us to create dashboards with the data we collect. It could be wearables. It could be just general clipboard data, which is just tallying and putting into a Microsoft Excel folder. Okay, so basically what this is allowing us to do is quickly show a report. And it's a very dynamic. I can change things over time, but I don't have to have the people download Power BI. I don't have to have the people involved in the group do really anything other than click. It's a really good way to display data. We've got a couple different things here too. And basically this would be built out by different people within our group that would allow you to have that information within your team to make decisions. So basically the workflow for Microsoft Teams and how it can impact our student athletes. Imagine you collect data. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's wearable data from Catapult or Polar or force plate data from the weight room. It doesn't matter if it's just surveys. Let's say your operations staff is collecting surveys of what you want to eat for your team on the road. It doesn't matter if it's practice plans or just general information. Okay, data and information are somewhat synonymous in this example. Okay, whatever it is that you want to store, you can put it into the cloud, into Microsoft Teams. Then members of your performance team or whoever you deem give access to this folder has that information. Everybody has that information within your group. We're playing cards up, very transparent. Now education, learning, conversation begins to happen, and that improves and impacts the student athlete and the decision makers that are making the decisions on the student athlete. Okay. At the end of the day, Microsoft Teams does a lot of things for us. It helps us keep the kid at the center of everything that we're doing. Communication, obviously, I say we're playing cards up. It helps us communicate across lines, and we get to choose who has access to different communication points. It helps us with our planning and our evaluation. Everybody's on the same platform. And then obviously when everybody's communicating, everybody's talking, different people are learning within the crew. Like everything, we want to guard against the duck. Okay, we can't take that guy apart. We need to see the big picture and see how everything plays on one another and works together. And this Microsoft Teams platform and the idea of performance really, really helps us with that. Okay. Today, we talked about the infrastructure that is high performance, those 4 different areas. We talked about the institute model and how to help manage some of the complex biological systems that we have here in elite athletics. We talked about how we developed performance school for getting staff knowledge and learning and us all together in fellowship. We talked about our performance academy and what we're building to give athletes pertinent information about making decisions that can improve their health, their performance. And then 3, we talked about the performance hub that we're building out. And if you're interested in being a part of the performance hub, we would really love for you to join us there. But basically what we're doing with that is we're just trying to grow, trying to develop, we're trying to share information. Microsoft Teams is a platform to do this. It's currently available on Microsoft 365 for all Penn State staff. You can purchase it for student athletes as well if they're not involved in the university system. So a lot of different things can happen for us with Microsoft Teams, and it's a wonderful tool. And then, we'll leave the remaining time up for discussion. If anybody has any information or questions, if anybody would like to schedule some sort of consultation, we can help you set that team up. It's just been really powerful, and we hope to continue to grow a little bit further. As always, education and learning is a big part of what we're doing. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we're doing in our group, you can follow some of the social media here. If you take a picture of that QR code, it'll take you right to our YouTube channel where we post as many things as we potentially can. Hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much.